Blood debt paid in roses. As I lay in a pool of blood inside my luxury mansion, watching the man I once loved burn a stack of old lottery tickets, I realized the price of wealth is sometimes paid in life, not currency. It turns out every stroke of luck in this world comes with a death sentence hanging over your head. I beat the odds, but I lost the game where I was nothing more than a sacrificial pawn. Part 1. The rain drummed against the corrugated iron roof of the slum lodging house like dry beans falling on a wooden floor, monotonous, irritating, maddening. I, Lon, sat huddled on a narrow, rickety bed, watching my young daughter sleep. Her breath was raspy from a week-long bout of bronchitis we couldn't afford to cure. I had exactly 20,000 dong left in my pocket. Enough for one breakfast tomorrow and a fraction of her medicine. My life was a sequence of bad choices. At 18, I dropped out of school to follow a man who promised a rosy future in the city. At 20, he vanished when I was 6 months pregnant, leaving behind gambling debts and a shattered heart. For 8 years, I worked every job imaginable: washing dishes, street vending, cleaning houses, just to keep Bong fed. That night, returning late across the old bridge, I encountered an old lottery seller huddled under an ancient banyan tree. She didn't call out, she just looked at me with clouded eyes that held a profound, ancient sadness. Despite having only enough for Bong's porridge, something compelled me to stop. Help an old woman with the last ticket, child, so I can go home to my husband. He's leaving soon. Her voice trembled. I looked at the ticket. The tail number was 49. People say 49 hasn't passed, 53 has already arrived, the number of ultimate misfortune. But at that moment, she and I were the same outcasts on the edge of the world. I handed over my last bill and took the ticket without a shred of hope. The next morning, while cleaning up the debris of a wealthy family's party where I worked as a maid, the lottery results broadcasted on the TV. I pulled the crumpled ticket from my pocket. My hands shook. 049, 3049. 183,049. The world stopped spinning. The grand prize. 50 billion dong. In that moment, I didn't feel joy. I felt terror. A primal fear took over. I was a nobody from the bottom of society, suddenly holding a fortune people in my circle couldn't even dream of. I tucked the ticket deep against my chest, asked for the day off, and bolted home. But life never gives you anything for free. As I entered the narrow alley to my room, I saw a luxury car parked out front. A man in a crisp white shirt, sophisticated and handsome, was asking neighbors about me. It was Hong, a young architect whose office I cleaned, and the man I secretly admired. Hong turned and smiled at me, a smile as warm as autumn sunlight. Lon, I've been looking for you. Why weren't you at work? I heard Bong was sick, so I came to check on you. My heart hammered. Why today? Why the moment I won? A dark thought crossed my mind, did he know? But that was impossible, I had only known for 30 minutes. Thank you, sir. Bong just has a light cold, I stuttered, clutching my chest where the ticket lay. Hong stepped closer, his expensive cologne masking the smell of the damp slum. He handed me a bag of medicine and premium milk. Don't work yourself too hard, Lon. If you need anything, tell me. I've always wanted to help you and the girl. I believed him. I believed God was finally smiling at me. I had the money, and I had the attention of a man I looked up to. I didn't know that behind that polite exterior was a predator waiting to devour us. And that lottery ticket? It wasn't a ticket to heaven, it was a summons to hell. I began to change. I didn't claim the prize immediately. I was afraid of being robbed, of being watched. I hid the ticket in a small ceramic jar buried under my bed. Every night, I stayed awake to guard it while Hong visited regularly. He started taking me to fancy dinners and cared for Bong's education. He said my background didn't matter, he loved my sincerity. Lon, you deserve a better life. I'm designing a villa in the suburbs, why don't you come and manage it for me? I hesitated. I hadn't told him about the money yet. I wanted to test him. I wanted to know if he would still love me if I were just a poor maid. But Hong was too skillful. He treated Bon like his own daughter. My defenses crumbled. Finally, I decided to claim the prize. I secretly took a bus to another province to avoid recognition. When I held the check for billions, I felt like I was flying. The first thing I did was buy a mansion in my name, but the person who handled all the legalities was Hong, as I knew nothing of paperwork. Trust me, Lon. I'll take care of everything for you, Hong said, holding my hand. His eyes sparkled with a strange light I mistook for happiness. We moved into the mansion. I lived like a queen. Bong attended an international school. Hong became the perfect husband and father. But the closer we got, the more I noticed irregularities. Hong often stayed up late in his locked study. He began asking me to sign numerous documents, claiming they were investments for my winnings. One night, I woke up thirsty. Passing Huang's study, I heard him arguing on the phone. Don't worry, the fish is in the net. Her assets are just scrap paper if I want them to be. I just need time to clean the files. Don't rush me, this can't be hurried. Her blood needs to flow slowly to be effective. I froze. Whose blood? What fish? Was he talking about me? Just then, the door swung open. Hong stood there, looking at me with a coldness I had never seen. The warm smile was gone, replaced by a terrifying cruelty. Did you hear something, Lon? His voice dropped, sounding like the hiss of a viper. I recoiled. Who were you talking to? What are you doing with my money? Hong stepped forward, pinning me against the wall. He gripped my jaw painfully. Your money? Oh Lon, you're so naive. From the moment you held that ticket, your fate was sealed. You're just a tool to bring it back. Who is it? I didn't understand. I broke free and ran to my room to grab Bong. I wanted to flee, to leave this house immediately. But when I reached for the door handle, I realized it had been locked from the outside. Huang's slow footsteps approached the door. He wasn't in a hurry. He knew I had no way out. Tomorrow, we go to sign one last contract. After that, you can rest forever. That night, I held my daughter and sobbed, clutching a Buddha pendant the old lottery woman had given me. I remembered her words, "Keep this, child. When you see red roses blooming on white snow, that is when the blood debt is paid." I didn't understand then. But now, looking out the window in the dead of winter, I saw the roses in the garden, planted by Hong, glowing deep red under the floodlights, beautiful in a way that was both haunting and lethal. The story had only just begun. What I saw, what I knew, was only the perfect shell of a plan decades in the making, involving a wrongful death and a horrific secret about my own identity and Huang's. That lottery ticket was never a matter of luck. Part 2. The bedroom door creaked open at 4 in the morning. The hallway light cast Huang's tall shadow across the floor like a dark entity swallowing my daughter and me. I held Bing tight, feeling her heart race in terror. Hong said nothing. He stepped closer, placing a pristine white dress and a tray of hot food on the table. Eat and get ready. Today is the most important day of your life, Lon, he said nonchalantly, as if the horrific confrontation from the night before had never happened. I looked at the dress. It was beautiful but cold, like a shroud. Where are you taking us? I won't sign anything else. Hong leaned down, his breath icy against my ear. You can refuse, but think of Bong. She needs fresh air, not the smell of gunpowder and a dark basement, right? That sentence felt like a blade through my throat. He was threatening my child's life. I stood up silently and put on the white dress. In the mirror, I looked pale and haggard, a stark contrast to Huang's radiant, sophisticated look in his charcoal suit. We got into the car. Hong drove himself, no chauffeur. The car sped through the thick morning fog of the suburbs. I realized this road didn't lead to a notary office or a bank. It led deep into an old pine forest, toward an abandoned colonial mansion locals called the Rose House. Why are we here? I asked, trembling. Hong didn't answer. His eyes were glued to the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. When the car stopped before the rusted iron gates, he finally turned to me, his eyes filled with a mix of fanaticism and deep-seated hatred. "Do you know why I planted so many roses at our house? Because my mother loved them. And she died on a carpet of crimson roses, with your father pouring her blood onto them." I was stunned. "What are you saying? My father? My father died in an accident when I was little." Hong burst into a dry, hollow laugh. "Accident? That was a play your mother and her lover staged after murdering my entire family to seize our transport company years ago. Your father didn't die, he just changed his name and fled. And you are the result of that betrayal." My head spun. My father, the man my mother described as a gentle carpenter, was a murderer. And Hong, he didn't approach me because of the lottery ticket? The lottery ticket. I gasped. Exactly. It was bait, Hong cut in coldly. The old woman selling tickets was my family's former servant. We calculated every move so that ticket would fall into your hands on that specific day. I needed a legal excuse to move the dirty money your father laundered years ago back into my pockets. The lottery winnings are actually my family's wealth, legalized through an international laundering ring where you were just the straw person. I felt nauseous. All the care, the hand-holding, the promises of a happy family, all a cruel script to collect an old debt. Hong dragged Bong and me into the old mansion. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of mold and wilting roses. In the center of the grand hall, a middle-aged man sat in a wingback chair, his back to us. "The true owner of that money is waiting for you, Lon." Hong pushed me forward. The man turned slowly. His face was a map of jagged scars, but his eyes were unmistakable. They were the eyes of the man in the tattered black and white photo my mother kept hidden under her pillow. My father. "Lon, my daughter," he croaked, his voice sounding like dry leaves brushing together. I recoiled in disgust. "You're not my father. My father is dead." The man looked at Hong, then back at me, his lip twitching. "Hong did well. He brought you here so we could fulfill your mother's final wish." "What wish?" I screamed. Hong stepped up, pulling out a thick file. "The wish to use your life to atone for what your father did. He wants to use a morbid ritual to reincarnate my mother's soul into your body." That money was just the grease for the palms of those performing the rite. I looked at my father, then at Hong. Both had gone mad with hatred and extreme superstition. They didn't want money, they wanted a sacrifice. Bong shrieked as Hong grabbed her arm, dragging her into another room. "Let my daughter go. Hong, I beg you." I knelt, clutching his legs. Hong looked at me with pure loathing and kicked me away. "Don't use those filthy lips to say my name. It's almost time. When the roses out there bloom under the full moon, it will all be over." He locked me in an empty room with a single small window overlooking the garden. There, I saw the wild rose bushes stretching their thorny vines like demonic arms. I desperately clawed at the thick wooden door, my fingernails bleeding. In the darkness of the room, my hand brushed against something hard under the floorboards. An old tin box. I opened it with trembling hands. No gold or silver inside, only a yellowed diary and a small, unlabeled vial. I opened the diary, the blurred ink became visible. It was my mother's handwriting. "To Lon, if you are reading this, it means I can no longer protect you. The truth is not what they tell you. Do not believe your eyes, believe your pain." I devoured the pages. The truth began to shift at a dizzying pace. It turned out that the person who murdered Huang's family wasn't my father. And the man sitting in the hall, he wasn't my father either. A plot within a plot. A third, hidden figure was manipulating both Hong and me like puppets on a stage of misplaced revenge. Who was it? And why did my mother know all this beforehand? The grandfather clock in the main hall struck 12 hollow chimes. The door opened. Hong appeared, holding a sharp silver dagger, its blade reflecting the cold moonlight. "It's time, Mother," he smiled, the smile of a devil. Part 3. The silver blade in Huang's hand trembled slightly, but his eyes remained locked in a state of fanatical conviction. He stepped closer, grabbing my hair and yanking my head back. A sharp sting shot through my scalp, but the terror in my chest was far more agonizing. Look, Lon. The moon is at its zenith. The roses outside are thirsty. My mother has waited 20 years to take back what belongs to her, Hong muttered, his voice sounding possessed. I struggled, my hand frantically sweeping the floor until I gripped the small, unlabeled vial I had found in the tin box. My mother's diary. The final lines flashed in my mind like a dying ember of hope. The enemy is not the one holding the knife, but the one who handed it to them. Hong. Listen to me. I screamed, my voice cracking. That man out there is not my father. You're being played. My father really died, my mother buried him with her own hands. Hong paused for a split second, the blade hovering inches from my throat. You lie. He has the scar, he knows all the secrets of the fire. He's the one who led me here, who showed me how to see my mother again. Look at that scar again. I wailed, tears streaming down my face. It's a fake, the result of botched surgeries. My mother wrote everything in here. The man sitting out there is your uncle, the one you believe died in the fire with your parents. Hong froze completely. His face contorted as faith and doubt warred within him. Taking advantage of his hesitation, I shoved him with all my strength and bolted for the door. But Hong was faster, he snagged the hem of my white dress, sending me sprawling onto the floor. At that moment, a dry, raspy laugh echoed from the doorway. The scarred man, the one Hong called my father, was standing there. In his hand was not a prayer book or a ritual object, but a cold, black handgun. Hong, my boy, don't let this girl poison your mind. He stepped in, his eyes gleaming with raw greed. She's just like her mother, a siren using words to enchant men. Finish it, so we can take the money and disappear. Money? Hong repeated, his voice wavering. Uncle, you said this was to bring my mother back? You said the money was secondary. The man laughed, his scars twisting into a grotesque mask. Are you still that 10-year-old boy trapped in the fire? The dead don't come back. I need this girl to sign the final inheritance papers, and then she dies. As for you, you've been helpful, I'll give you a cut. Huang's world shattered. His idol, his faith, and the revenge he had nurtured for years were nothing but tools for his biological uncle to seize the estate. The uncle he thought had sacrificed himself to save Hong was actually the one who set the fire to kill his own brother and sister-in-law, failing only because my mother, the head accountant then, had secretly moved the assets to protect them. You killed my parents? Hong looked at his uncle, his knife hand dropping. They were stubborn, just like you. The man leveled the gun at Hong. Now, Lon, sign this. Or your daughter joins her grandparents immediately. He threw a stack of papers at me. I looked into the next room and saw Bong tied to a chair, her mouth taped shut. My heart broke. I picked up the pen, my hand shaking. But my mother's words echoed again, the blue powder is the key to the truth. I pretended to sign, but I was actually fumbling with the vial. It wasn't poison, it was a potent fluorescent powder used in architecture that Hong once mentioned. I coated the papers and the dry wooden floor with it. Sign it, the old man barked. The moment the pen touched the paper, a strange light flooded through the window. It wasn't the moon. It was the high-beam headlights of police cruisers. It turns out the old lottery woman wasn't just a servant, she was my mother's secret guardian. She had called the police the moment she saw Huang's car racing toward the forest. Panic seized the old man. He moved to pull the trigger. Hong, in a final moment of clarity, threw himself at his uncle. Run, Lon. Take Bong and run. A gunshot shattered the air. The bullet hit Huang's shoulder. I lunged into the next room and sliced Bong's ropes. In the darkness of the mansion, thanks to the fluorescent powder I had scattered, the escape route through the window behind the rose bushes glowed faintly. I jumped with Bong in my arms. Sharp thorns tore at my skin, and blood dripped onto the thin layer of winter snow. Red and white merged, just as the old woman had prophesied, roses on snow, blood debt paid. Behind me, the old mansion erupted in flames. Perhaps the old man had knocked over a kerosene lamp during the struggle. The fire roared, consuming the horrific memories. I collapsed on the main road as the police swarmed in. I looked back at the fire and saw a tall figure staggering out through the smoke, clutching a wooden box. It was Hong. He was alive, but the arrogance of a revenger was gone from his face. He knelt before me, holding out the box. "In here is the truth about the money. It belongs to no one. Use it to bring justice to those who were lost." I looked at him with a mixture of hate, pity, and disgust. But the truth of the lottery ticket was still unfolding. When I opened the box under the ambulance lights, I saw another ticket, identical to the one I had won. My mother's handwriting on the back made my skin crawl. "This money is only for one with a heart free of greed. If you are reading this, it means you chose humanity over wealth. The real ticket is still in the ceramic jar under your bed at the lodging house." I was stunned. If the real ticket was at home, what was the one I used to claim the 50 billion? And why did the bank accept it? A grander deception than anything Hong or his uncle could have imagined revealed itself. My mother, a seemingly poor woman, was a psychological and financial genius. She had set a trap for the greedy to destroy themselves. And I? Was I just a pawn, or the true heir to a lethal game of karma? Part 4. The sirens of the ambulances and police cruisers tore through the silence of the pine forest. Hong was handcuffed, his shoulders soaked in blood, but his eyes held a strange sense of relief. Behind us, the Rose House continued to roar in flames, incinerating both the greedy uncle and the dark secrets of their lineage. I sat on the grass, clutching Bong tightly. The lottery ticket in the wooden box Hong had given me, the one with my mother's handwriting, it was identical to the 50 billion dong ticket I had used to claim the prize. "Why?" I whispered, my head spinning. "If the real ticket is still under my bed, what was the one I cashed in? Why did the bank pay out?" Hong looked at me, a bitter smile playing on his lips. "Lon, don't you see? The bank never paid you. That 50 billion, it came from my uncle's offshore accounts. He set up a phantom banking system, a perfectly staged transaction room just to trick you into signing those legal asset transfer documents. He wanted to use you as a front to clean his illicit funds before officially seizing them." I shivered. Every luxury I thought I owned, the mansion, the car, the credit card balance, it was all part of a massive money laundering scheme. I hadn't won the lottery. I was just a transit station for dirty money. But what about my mother's ticket? I opened the old ticket from the box. It was an old ticket from 20 years ago. The issue date matched the day of the fire. On the back, besides the message to me, was a Swiss bank account code. "Your mother wasn't just an accountant," Hong continued, his voice raspy from the smoke. "She was the only one who held the key to my parents' true treasure, the original shares and gold bullion smuggled out before my uncle struck. She knew my uncle wouldn't leave you alone, so she created the myth of the winning lottery ticket to lure him out." I realized with a shock that my mother had used her own life and reputation to set a trap spanning 2 decades. She knew the greed of the scarred uncle would drive him mad if he saw a prey like me suddenly become wealthy. The 50 billion ticket I bought from the old woman, it was a sophisticated forgery, a lure my mother had prepared long ago, entrusted to the old woman, her only loyal ally, to be handed to me at my most desperate moment. The old woman hadn't appeared by chance. She had been waiting for me for 8 years at that lodging house. So, I'm still just a poor girl with 20,000 dong in my pocket? I laughed through my tears. A self-mocking laugh for my own naivety. "No," Hong looked deep into my eyes. "Inside your mother's old ticket is the code to a trust fund in Bong's name. That is clean money, the wealth my parents entrusted to your mother to protect, as an apology for what my family did to yours. Your mother chose the harshest way to teach you that money from the sky is a curse, only what is protected by love and sacrifice lasts." The police took Bong and me to the station for statements. Hong was separated. Before he left, he whispered, "There's a small key in my coat pocket. It's for a safe deposit box at the city post office. There's something there for you. I'm sorry, Lon, for everything, 3 days later, when things had calmed down, I went to the post office. Inside box 049, the fateful number, I found a thick envelope. Inside was a life insurance policy in Huang's name, with the beneficiaries being me and Bong. And a suicide note written 6 months ago, the time he first approached me at the architecture firm. Lon, if you're reading this, I'm likely gone. I approached you with a heart full of hate, but I lost to your kindness and Bong's laughter. I knew my uncle would kill you once he got what he wanted. The only way to save you was to play the villain until the end, to trick him into taking you to the Rose House, where I had secretly installed GPS and silent alarms for the police. This insurance money is everything I earned honestly as an architect, not dirty money. Use it to raise Bong. And please, never buy a lottery ticket again. I stood frozen in the crowded post office hall. Tears wouldn't stop falling. The man I loved, then hated, then loathed, he was the one who had silently protected me in the most painful way possible for himself. He had stepped into the darkness to lead us into the light. But the story didn't end there. When I returned to the old lodging house to find the ceramic jar as my mother instructed, I found the room ransacked. The jar was shattered. The real ticket my mother mentioned was gone. On the peeling wall of the room, someone had used red spray paint to draw a burning rose, accompanied by a line of text, "The game is just beginning, Rose." Rose? That was my mother's English name. Why did this person call me by her name? And who held the real ticket? I looked out the window. A man in a black coat and a low-slung cap was standing across the street, staring at me. In his hand, he held a lottery ticket, slowly tearing it to shreds before my eyes before vanishing into the crowd. My heart hammered. I realized I wasn't the one who ended the game. I had only just stepped into a greater cycle of karma, where the true villains were still lurking in the shadows, and that 50 billion ticket was perhaps only a tiny piece of a terrifying treasure that could topple an empire. My mother, was she still alive? Or had she left a legacy I could never have imagined? Part 5. The man in the black coat vanished into the crowd as quickly as a ghost, leaving me standing frozen in the ransacked room. The pungent smell of spray paint from the rose on the wall felt like it was choking my lungs. Rose, that was the name my mother only used when she worked for the transport conglomerate years ago. How did this man know? I picked up the shards of the ceramic jar from under the bed. There was no lottery ticket left. Only a small scrap of paper, the specialized waterproof kind used by banks, was wedged in a crack in the wooden floor. On it was nothing but a geographic coordinate and a line of handwritten text in faded purple ink. The truth does not lie in the numbers, it lies in the one who counts the money. I suddenly remembered the old lottery seller. If she was my mother's last ally, she surely knew who had just appeared. I bolted out of the lodging house, running frantically to the old bridge where I had met her that night. But the ancient banyan tree was empty, save for a few half-burnt incense sticks and a tattered plastic basket. "Are you looking for the old lottery lady?" a nearby street vendor asked. "She passed away this morning. They say it was a stroke, right after the police hauled those people away from the Rose House." My heart sank. The timing was too cruel. She died just as the secret was about to be unraveled. I felt an invisible hand tightening the noose around my daughter and me. This person wanted no witnesses left alive. I returned to the luxury mansion, which was now a crime scene and cordoned off. I snuck in through the back entrance Hong had once shown me. I needed to find his personal laptop. If Hong had been secretly protecting me, he must have kept evidence of the third hidden figure my mother mentioned in her diary. Huang's study still reeked of smoke. I found the laptop under the debris. The screen was shattered, but the hard drive seemed intact. Just as I was about to leave, a slight noise echoed from the hallway. Thump. 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 The sound of leather shoes striking the wooden floor was steady and cold. I held my breath, hiding behind a fallen filing cabinet. Through a gap, I saw a pair of polished black shoes stop in the middle of the room. It was the man from before. He wasn't in a hurry. He slowly removed his leather gloves, revealing a hand with a black rose tattoo on the back of his palm. He picked up a photo of Hong and me from the desk and flicked a lighter, setting it ablaze. The copy can never be the original, Rose, he whispered, his voice deep but carrying the weight of death. I trembled, almost dropping the laptop. At that moment, the phone in my pocket vibrated. It was a call from Hong from the detention center. The ringtone shattered the silence. The man whirled toward the cabinet. I had no way out. I threw the laptop toward the window to distract him and bolted for the main door. He didn't chase me immediately, he just let out a low, chilling chuckle. I reached the gate and jumped into a waiting taxi. Once inside, I answered the phone with shaking hands. Lon. Listen to me carefully. Huang's voice was urgent, his breath hitched as if he had traded something precious for this call. That man is the fifth pedal. He's not one of my uncle's men. He's from the organization your mother used to work for. That 50 billion was just a label for him to find the blacklist your mother stole 20 years ago. Don't trust anyone, not even the police. Hong. He's here. He just entered the house. I screamed. Hide, Lon. Find the address on the back of the old ticket. It's not a geographic coordinate, it's a safe code at. The line went dead. I looked at the phone screen, filled with rage and fear. I looked back at the scrap of paper in my hand. 10.7747 degrees north, 106.7012 degrees east. I did a quick search on the map. It was the location of the City Museum of Fine Arts. Why a museum? I dropped Bong off at the home of the only close friend I trusted, then headed to the museum alone. Amidst the ancient lacquer paintings, I saw a portrait of a woman standing in a garden of white roses, but she held a single crimson rose in her hand. The title of the painting was The Betrayal of Colors. I looked closely at the corner of the painting. There was a tiny symbol, the number 049. I lightly touched the frame and felt a protrusion. A secret compartment clicked open. Inside, there was no money, no gold. Only a USB drive and a human skin mask so sophisticated it was uncanny. The mask looked exactly like my face. A jolt of electricity ran down my spine. I realized the most horrific truth: I am not Lon. The real Lon had died in the fire 20 years ago with Huang's parents. Then who am I? Why do I have this face? Why do I have these memories of Bong, of the poor life in the slums? I plugged the USB into my phone via an adapter. A video played. In the video, my mother, the woman I always called mother, was sitting in a stark white room. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes cold, devoid of maternal warmth. Subject 49, successful. The subject completely believes she is Lon, the survivor of the fire. The implanted false memories are perfect. Now, Lon will be the key to lure the remaining members of the organization out. If Lon is reading this, you have fulfilled your mission as the perfect bait. I collapsed onto the cold museum floor. Who was Bong? What was my life? Was everything just a psychological and revenge experiment by a madwoman I called mother? Behind me, slow clapping echoed. The man with the black rose tattoo stepped out from the shadows of the museum corridor. Welcome back to reality, Subject 49, he said, removing his hat to reveal a face surprisingly young. You did well. Now, give me that USB, and I'll tell you where Bong really is. Bong, she's not my daughter? I croaked, my heart shattering. He laughed, a smile full of pity. Bang is the sixth pedal. She is the one to replace you if you fail. But it seems you still have plenty of utility left. In that moment, I realized I had nothing left to lose. If my entire life was a lie, then this pain had to be real. I gripped the USB, my eyes burning with hatred. Karma? No, this wasn't karma. This was a devious game of chess, and I was going to be the one to flip the board. Part 6. The man with the black rose tattoo drew closer, each footstep echoing against my chest like a hammer on a raw wound. I looked at the USB drive in my hand, the small plastic casing that held the devastating truth of my existence. Subject 49. A lab code. A puppet programmed with memories to believe she was a poor mother, a victim of circumstance. Don't look at me like that, he chuckled, his tone patronizing, as if soothing a child. Your mother, or more accurately, Dr. Rose, spent her life creating you. A perfect entity endowed with empathy and resilience. You aren't fake, Lon. The feelings you have for Bang are real, and that is exactly what made this experiment a resounding success. Where is Bong? I hissed, my knuckles turning white as I gripped the drive. She's in a safe place, as long as you cooperate. The organization needs the blacklist embedded in your biometric encryption. You are the living key, Lon. That 50 billion lottery ticket was merely the trigger to activate the deep-seated memory sectors of your brain the moment you touched it. Do you remember the feeling when you held that ticket? That jolt, that recognition. I recoiled as the memory flooded back. That spark under the banyan tree. I had thought it was emotion, but it was a system initialization. And Hong? Was he part of the experiment too? The man paused, a flicker of genuine amusement in his eyes. Hong was a variable we didn't account for. He is the son of the enemy, but he truly fell for the bait. He tried to save you by creating that money laundering charade to move you out of the organization's sight. Regrettably, he was too naive to think he could outsmart Rose. Suddenly, the museum's alarm system shrieked. Red lights swept the hallway like streaks of fresh blood. The man's expression hardened as he pulled out a silenced handgun. Let's go. We don't have much time. The cleaners are coming. The cleaners? Rose never leaves traces of a failed experiment. And currently, since you know too much, you are a system error. He grabbed my arm, dragging me toward the fire exit. But I was no longer the frail maid. The false memories of hardship, of struggling to protect my child in a rotting slum, had forged a fierce survival instinct. I used the sharp edge of the USB drive to stab him hard in the back of his tattooed hand, right through the black rose. He roared in pain, dropping the gun. I didn't run for the exit, I sprinted back into the lacquer painting gallery. I remembered the line from the USB, the truth lies in the one who counts the money. In the dim room, I found the portrait of a wealthy man counting gold coins, but his shadow on the wall was a demon holding a rose. I lunged forward and tore the canvas. Behind it was a hidden touch panel. I pressed my palm against it. An electronic voice spoke, Subject 49 identified. Initiating data self-destruct sequence. No. Stop it. The man lunged at me, but it was too late. The screen displayed thousands of lines of code being wiped. Files on Project Rose, the blacklist, and criminal evidence against the organization were vanishing. But amidst the chaos, one image file suddenly popped up and froze on the screen. It was an ultrasound photo. The date was 6 years ago. And the patient's name was Lon. My heart skipped a beat. If I was a created experiment, why did this photo exist? You see it now? The man leaned against the doorframe, blood dripping from his hand. He laughed bitterly. You aren't an android. You are the real Lon. You are Rose's biological daughter. She wiped her own daughter's memory, turning her child into a pawn to avenge her husband's death, your father. She was cruel enough to turn you into a stranger in your own life. I collapsed. This truth was more agonizing than being a machine. I was the child of a monster. And Bong. Bong is your biological child with Hong, he continued, his voice dripping with irony. That's why Hong risked everything to protect you both. He knew everything, but he couldn't speak because Rose held the child's life in her hands. Heavy footsteps of a tactical unit thundered into the building. They weren't police. They wore black uniforms with a red rose logo. Rose's private army. Subject 49 has defected. Terminate, a cold voice boomed over a loudspeaker. The man with the black rose tattoo suddenly shoved me into a secret trapdoor beneath the gallery floor. Run, Lon. Go back to the Rose House. The final truth isn't in a lottery ticket, it's under the carpet of roses where my mother died. Hong is waiting for you there. Why are you saving me? I stared at him. He smiled, a genuine smile for the first time. Because I am the first petal. I am Huang's older brother. And I'm sick of being Rose's puppet. The trapdoor slammed shut just as a hail of gunfire erupted above. I crawled through the dark tunnel, tears streaming down my face. I had to live. I had to save my child. And I had to face the woman who gave me life only to treat it like a toy. When I emerged, dawn was breaking. I stood before the ruins of the Rose House. Amidst the charred remains, the rose bushes were unnaturally vibrant. I began to dig. I dug with my bare hands until my fingernails bled. Deep in the soil, I hit a cold metal box. Inside was an old tape recorder and a master key. I pressed play. Lan, my dearest daughter, if you are hearing this, you have passed the final test. The hatred is over. The 50 billion is real, it is in a charity fund in your name. But there is one thing I never told you about that ticket. A sharp click of a gun sounded directly behind me. Don't listen to her, Lan. I turned. Hong stood there, gun in hand, but his eyes weren't those of the man I loved. They were the eyes of someone completely consumed by the dark. Hong. The person who actually won the lottery that day wasn't you. Hong stepped forward, the barrel of the gun pointed straight at my heart. It was me. Part 7. The black barrel of Huang's gun remained steady in the cold wind, but it was his eyes that sent a shiver down my spine. Gone was the scholarly charm, gone was the facade of compassion, there was only the cold calculation of a man who had waited 10 years for this moment. You won the lottery? I whispered, my mud and blood-stained hands clutching the recorder. Hong let out a dry, hollow chuckle. Yes. That ticket ending in 49, I bought it from the old woman under the banyan tree 10 minutes before you did. But I couldn't come forward. A prestigious architect suddenly winning millions would be torn apart by the tax authorities and my father's old enemies. I needed a vault to hold that money, a vault I could control. And that vault was me? Exactly. I secretly slipped the winning ticket into your bag while you were cleaning my office. I staged the meeting at the slums, played the hero saving the damsel. I used you to claim the prize, used your name to buy the house and the cars, so all of the Black Rose organization's attention would fall on you. You were the most perfect shield I ever designed. I felt my chest tighten until I couldn't breathe. And Bong? You said she was our child. Hong went silent for a second, his gaze wavering. That is the only truth in this play. Bong is mine. But Lan, in a world of predators, family is a luxury. I need that money to rebuild my father's empire, to destroy Rose, your mother, the woman who turned my family to ash. So you're going to kill me? I stood tall, staring straight down the barrel. I have no choice. You know too much about the Fifth Petal and Rose's project. If you live, the organization won't let me be. I'll take Bong, raise her to be a true successor. Just then, the recorder in my hand crackled to life, and Rose's voice boomed with authority. Hong, do you really think you're the one driving? Did you forget who taught you how to lay the first bricks of hatred? Hong froze, his face turning ashen. From behind the scorched rose bushes, a refined woman stepped out. She wore a black cheongsam, her hair up in a perfect bun, her face showing no signs of age despite being over 50. It was Rose, my mother. You're not dead? Hong growled, swinging the gun toward Rose. Death is just a psychological trick, son-in-law, Rose said calmly, walking toward him despite the weapon. That ticket, whether it was Lan's or yours, only has value when I authorize the bank to pay. You thought you bypassed me by using Lan as a front? No, I let you do it because I wanted to see if you were ruthless enough to kill the woman you love. You haven't disappointed me. She turned to me, her eyes devoid of warmth. Lan, my daughter. Do you see? This is the nature of men, of love. Only power and clarity can save you. I looked at the two monsters facing each other. One was the father of my child, the other was the woman who birthed me. Both saw me as a commodity, an experimental tool. Enough! I screamed, holding up the master key I'd found in the metal box. You said the truth lies under this carpet of roses? I found it. Not money, not a blacklist. This. I opened the recorder and pressed a hidden button at the base. A small transmitter inside began to blink blue. This is the trigger for a global cloud storage system. Every piece of evidence of Rose's human trafficking and psychological experiments, along with proof of Huang's money laundering for criminal syndicates, it's all being sent directly to Interpol and the world's largest news agencies right now. Rose and Huang's faces turned the color of grave dirt simultaneously. What are you doing? Do you realize this will destroy everything? Rose lunged forward to grab the device. Destroy what? The hell you created? I backed away, gripping the trigger. I am not Subject 49. I am not your poor Lon either. I am a mother. And a mother will do anything to ensure her child doesn't live in a world filled with demons like you. The thrum of helicopters suddenly roared from the horizon. Powerful searchlights cut through the Garden of Ruins. International police had completely surrounded the perimeter. Drop the weapon, a loudspeaker boomed. Huang looked at me, then at Rose, then down at the deep pit in the earth. He realized he had lost everything. His greed had blinded him to the fact that the prey he despised most was the one holding the key to his annihilation. In the chaos, Rose pulled a small syringe from her pocket, aiming for my neck. But a shot rang out. Not from the police. The man with the black rose tattoo, Huang's brother, appeared from behind the trees, his gun still smoking. The bullet hit Rose's arm, sending the syringe flying. It's over, my lady, he said, his voice raspy. Today, roses will not bloom with blood. The police swarmed in, subduing Rose and Huang. As they were led away, Rose stared at me with burning hatred, while Huang, he just bowed his head, unable to look me in the eye. I stood alone in the desolate garden. The tattooed man approached and handed me a small address written on his palm. Bong is there. She's safe. Go, Lon. Live the life of a human, not a number. I ran toward the sunrise beginning to glow in the east. The end? 1 month later. I sat on the beach with Bong. The actual lottery winnings. I donated all of it to a foundation for children who were victims of psychological experiments. I went back to being a normal woman, earning a living as a small-town seamstress by the sea. I opened my old wallet. Inside was the 20,000 dong ticket I had bought from the old woman that night, the fake ticket my mother had swapped in to distract everyone. I looked at the numbers, 183049. Suddenly, I flipped the ticket over. Under the direct sunlight, I saw tiny text, visible only at a certain angle, in my mother's handwriting. This sequence isn't for winning money. It's your birth date, Lon. March 18, 2049. Welcome to the real world. I love you. I stared at the birth year in horror. 2049? It was only 2024. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I looked down at Bong playing in the sand. She turned to look at me, and her eyes flashed with a strange light, identical to Rose's eyes in the experimental video. Mommy, it's your turn to count the numbers, Bong smiled. I looked around. The beach was empty. The waves were rhythmic. But why hadn't the sun moved an inch in the last 2 hours? I reached up to touch my face. Beneath the soft skin, I felt a small, hard protrusion. A tracking chip. It turned out the Rose house never burned. The police never came. And I had never escaped the white room of Experiment 49. Everything that just happened was merely a new memory simulation to test my reaction to betrayal. Bong walked over and took my hand. Her voice suddenly became deep and aged. Experiment 49, version 2.0, failed. Subject has detected the time paradox. Prepare to wipe memory and restart from the slum lodging house. This time, let's make her win 100 billion. The world before my eyes collapsed into black and white pixels. The rain began to drum against the corrugated iron roof again, monotonous, irritating, maddening. I opened my eyes. I had exactly 20,000 dong in my pocket.